What up? What up? Welcome to another episode of Debate with Bait, brought to you by Most Serious Entertainment in the heart of Most City. I am your host, Mr. Charles Baker, aka C Bake. Unfortunately, tonight my co-host Gerard Cole, aka Rude Boy, is absent tonight. But we got a special treat. We got a special co-host today. We welcome me and Mr. Jason Campbell, the runner, the man of Job 87 podcast. He gonna be sitting in with us tonight as our guest co-host. Jay, what's going on, man? It's good to see you.
Always good to see you, man. It's been way too long, and I appreciate you having me. Absolutely, thank you.
That's right, man. We's good to see you, man. Man, shout out to your podcast, man. We definitely want to get on with you. We definitely want to collaborate with you, man. It's good to see you. It's good to see you in your Kansas City Chiefs sweater. I mean, we know that you let it be known that publicly you are a Kansas City Chiefs fan. And hey, man, congratulations to y'all, the dynamic quarterback, the dynamic coaching staff, man. So we're going to get a little bit into the Kansas City Chiefs tonight. But for those who are attending tonight, make sure you check into Most Serious. Make sure you subscribe into Most Serious Entertainment. And, hey, Cole, we miss you, man. For those who are watching tonight, Cole is out. He's under the weather a little bit. I mean, it's very unfortunate because he's from New York City. And, let me say this. It's not unfortunate, but I'm kind of happy in a sense because I don't have to hear about the New York Knicks winning streak. I don't have to hear about the Brooklyn Nets, even though we are going to get into the Brooklyn Nets a little bit tonight. But shout out to Cole. Cole, man, I hope you get better. We'll be looking forward to you coming back next week. But with that being said, man, let's get into this week of sports. First thing to kick off episode 17, the first topic we want to get into is right before this playoff push, who is the NFL MVP? And of course, some people are saying that, we've got Mahomes, who's always, in my opinion, will always be an NFL MVP candidate. Of course, people are talking about the Eagles with Jalen, and, what he's doing, what the team is doing. And of course, Joe Burrow. And some people are even throwing Josh Allen into the equation. But let's get into it. So, Jay, man, of course, you always got Mahomes in the MVP. Well, in my opinion, the MVP conversation.
Right.
But let's get into it, man. Who is your MVP? Who is your NFL MVP? And tell us why.
Well, I'll be honest, and part of it is being a homer pick, and then the other part, it'll make sense in a second, is more the realistic pick, right? So they always say go with your heart and go with your head. You got to pick which one you're going with. So my heart is always going to go with my Chief when he's playing well, which is Patrick Mahomes, because one, his stats show that he's delivering. He has not been delivering as much as we would like. For instance, last week against the Texans, that was not a great Patrick Mahomes game, but that's just a shout out to the Texans and how well they played. But then you look at what Jalen Hurts is doing, and because realistically, it is a two-man show at this point.
Right.
Jalen Hurts is doing what he's supposed to do. He's throwing well.
Right.
He's running the ball phenomenally well.
Right.
He's winning all the games he's supposed to win -1, which means that he's leading the NFL with the best record at this point. It's hard to go against Jalen Hurts, as much as that hurts my heart to say that. I agree. It's hard to go against him, even though he doesn't have, the amazing, beautiful passing numbers getting close to 5,000. But he's doing it with his legs and with his arm, and he's leading his team. Right. Solid.
And I agree, man. It's hard not to crown Jalen Hurts. And, just for some numbers to back him up. I mean, right now, of course, the Eagles are the number one scoring offense. As far as points, averaging 29.7 points a game. His quarterback rating is 4th in the league. He's 70 with a 70.4 quarterback rating. He's got 22 touchdowns. He's tied for 5th in the league in that category. He's only got 3 interceptions. Now, he may have more now. I don't think if he had any last week against Chicago. That's 1st in the league. His passing yards is 3,157, 5th in the league. His completion percentage is 68.0%, which is, man, he ranks first in the passing rating. Just like you said with his legs, he's got 10 rushing touchdowns with 686 yards with those rushing touchdowns. He's the first quarterback to rush for 10 touchdowns in back-to-back seasons. The Eagles, of course, have already clinched a playoff spot. Yeah, it's hard to not crown him. I had some questions about it because, again, you know, you could talk about Joe Burrow, but I agree that it's a two-man race between him and Mahomes. Now, my question to you is this. If you take Jalen Hurts off the Eagles and you put him on the Kansas City Chiefs, do you think the Chiefs are still doing the same thing that they're doing right now?
Not at all. Not at all. And I think that, for one, their styles are different. Even though I do give credit to the coaches, you know, me being the coach, you always want to give credit to those coaches when they've earned it, you know, and I think that Andy Reid does an amazing job with whatever he has.
Right.
Right. But I think that Jalen Hurts would not have the same record or the same stat line, but I think that he would still be insanely successful.
Right.
And I think that Patrick Mahomes, almost wherever he goes, is going to be successful as long as it's not just a run-heavy offense.
Right.
Does that make sense? Where the stats won't add up.
Right.
But because Philadelphia's defense is so good right now, they're just playing really good football, you know, and they're doing what they're supposed to do. I mean, I think that, you know, Jalen Hurts wouldn't have the same success, but I think he would still be very successful.
I agree. And that's my only doubt about, and I've said this all season long. I mean, the Eagles itself, the team, I'm talking about the team itself. I mean, to me, their biggest strength is their depth. You know, on defense, the defense is playing lights out. But, I mean, they're just stacked. And we know in the NFL season, well, in the football season, well, let's just stick with the NFL. In the NFL itself, we all know, well, at least my theory is you're as good as your backups. Nobody goes through a season without being hurt or somebody dropping off. Of course. So when I look at the Eagles, and I think Micah Parsons said something, he kind of criticized Jalen in the sense that he was giving props to the Eagles, but he was saying, you know, the team is Jalen is good, but this might be the best team in the NFL all year. And so, I mean, it's kind of like I'm from the old school in the sense that the best team who's got the best player should be the MVP. But I mean, this team is so good and everything is Jalen is clicking, but the team is clicking on all cylinders. And so that would be my only doubt. When I look at Patrick Mahomes, and you know, you tell me this, you're a coach and you're a Chiefs fan, but you know, this is not, to me, in my opinion, and you give me your opinion on this after I finish, but this is not the best Chiefs team that we've seen.
No.
You know, they lost the cheetah. He went over to Miami, and I think, you know, he's one of the best weapons that you have in the NFL. And so my case for Mahomes, and it's just me playing devil's advocate, my case for Mahomes, if you take away how many quarterbacks would be doing what he's still doing at a high level without that weapon being there. I mean, that's one of the best, not just best receivers, but weapon, period. You have to account for him in coverage of your defense. He's a nightmare because he's a speed demon. And you know, with speed in the NFL, it's kind of like if you don't have it, you can't match it. It's nothing you can do. Right. So being that, and then let's be honest about the NFL. The NFL is a league of film. By now, and I'll go out on a limb and say this, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but by now, with all the film that's going on with the Kansas City Chiefs, you know, usually the NFL will adjust to you.
Correct.
But Mahomes still finds a way to pull out wins for that. And so, you know,
he does a great job.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be upset if you gave it to Patrick Mahomes, because like I said, I think Patrick Mahomes, for what he does, and again, like you said, give credit to Andy Reid. They've done a hell of a job. And anybody knows anything about Andy Reid's teams in the past, he is an offensive guy. But if you take into account that this, to me, in my opinion, is not the best Kansas City Chiefs team, what
Right.
they've been able to do, what Mahomes has been able to do, I can always make a case for Mahomes being an NFL MVP over Jalen Hurts. Now, some people ain't gonna agree with me, but you see what I'm saying?
And here's a few things that I think about when I'm trying to painfully say Jalen Hurts deserves MVP, and the fact that the AFC West is not what everybody thought it was going to be when the season started. The Broncos are nowhere near what anybody expected they were going to be.
Right.
The Chargers are still in the balance, and the Raiders have an up and down season. And again, it's nowhere near what they thought. But the New York Giants have showed that they have some more fight in them. Right. They've done a good job. Guys are healthy, like you were talking about. You have to be healthy for one. You have to have your depth. So the Giants have been better.
Right.
And their division as a whole. Of course, the Cowboys.
Right.
The Cowboys have done a really rock solid job, and to play just those two teams alone make it where you say Jalen Hurts has had a harder schedule with a better record than Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
And I know that they lost to Washington, the Commanders,
which could beat anybody in that division at any time.
Absolutely, because they aren't a slouch. They're up and down. They're playing well. They're about 2 years away, in my opinion, from being a consistent, playoff push team.
Right.
And you look at the Chiefs. Well, the Chiefs lost to like Indianapolis, right? You go, that's a game that shouldn't happen. They lost to Buffalo, where you say, well, Buffalo is solid,
right?
Which pushes the Josh Allen conversation, which we'll talk about. And you go, they almost lost to the Texans. And there are these games where you say, where's that consistency?
Right.
And Hurts has won almost every tough game he's been in, minus Washington.
That's true.
And I think that's the dividing line right there. Is when it comes to winning those tough games, Hurts has done that so far. The only problem is the last few games, the Chiefs have a much easier schedule, and Hurts does not. And of course, they always wait to find out how those last few games go before they make that decision. But if they had to vote right now today, I think it goes to Hurts.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Talking about Hurts and Mahomes, and we both kind of decided that it is a two-man race. Who's the better leader for their team? You may have answered that question, but I want to hear you talk about that quality. Who is the better leader? We're talking about the NFL MVP. Talking about Jalen Hurts, we're talking about Patrick Mahomes. We're talking about the 2022-2023 season. Who do you think is a better leader? And somebody in particular who pushes their teammates, who knows how to use what they have at a higher degree? Who is the better leader out of the two, in your opinion?
That's really hard. That's a great question. That's really hard to answer because we're talking about this year alone. Right. And to get a quarterback to also motivate a defense. Right. I mean, that's one thing in itself, especially like if you're playing a game where you have one touch and two picks, but you're going out there and trying to bark at the defense. That's a hard thing to do. You know what I mean? Right. And saying that, Jalen Hurts has not had a lot of 3 and 4 touchdown games, and Pat Mahomes has had a handful of those. He's already won the Super Bowl, compared to a guy who has not. So I think that when you know that you have something special, and you continue to win these games that you're supposed to win, I think that if you want to talk big, overall body of work, Pat Mahomes this year.
But this year, yes,
this year it goes to Hurts. Because I think that he has had to prove himself to say, this is the year that we want to make it happen. And I'm going to do whatever it takes, which he's showing. I'm going to do whatever it takes to help win these games, and including motivating that defense. And not saying that the Chiefs defense is a slouch, but I am saying that it's an expectation. You know what Pat Mahomes is going to bring to the table.
Right.
And this is Jalen Hurts' breakout year.
So do you think so what I'm hearing you say is, and I somewhat agreed, you answered the question, I think as best as you could, and I think it's real good what you said, but I want to make sure I'm hearing this right. So are you attributing a lot, when I say leadership, you think that the defense is believing in Jalen Hurts as well in terms of overall team?
I think so. I think so. And again, the proof is in the pudding, whatever that means.
Right.
When you look at the games that they win, you'll have the defense step up some games, you'll have the offense step up some games. And again, when it comes down to a close game, and this is what kills me is people often look at football as an individual sport when they say the quarterback wins everything. And any Super Bowl you watch, you know that those defenses play lights out.
That's right.
You'll see,
great point.
some receivers making some amazing catches. I want to say Santonio Holmes in the back of the end zone a couple of years ago, Pittsburgh versus Arizona. And the Giants and the Patriots, two different times, receivers are making phenomenal catches. And without those catches, Eli Manning doesn't have a Super Bowl. Right. And Ben Roethlisberger's -1, and Kurt Warner has one, or whatever, an additional one, and it's a team game. So saying that, I think that, I'm going a long way to say that it is a team game. It's a hard thing to prove, but at the end of the day, this is what it goes down as: did you win or did you lose?
Right.
Right. And wins matter.
Right. Great point. Who is the more versatile quarterback out of those two?
By far, Jalen Hurts. I mean, him rushing for was it 13? I think he has 13 rushing touchdowns this year and 10 plus last year. You know how hard it is to run the ball and get hit. You're going to get hit unless you slide.
Right.
And the more you run, and again, I know people say Jalen Hurts been in the weight room. And I know they say he's been lifting and he's big and strong. You're not that big and strong to get hit by linebackers every game. You're not. I'm sorry. Those are some grown men. We went to school with some guys who, who ended up playing pros. And you go playing in the NFL and you go, this is crazy to me to see you getting hit by these guys all the time, or to even have that be an option. Right. Patrick Mahomes runs out of necessity. Right. Jalen Hurts runs more so out of if I have to, or some designed run.
Right.
So to take those beatings, I think that he is more versatile right now.
Right. Great point. And of course, wins on the field, we would have to tip the scales to Hurts, being that they only lost one game. Mm-hmm. I agree with every point you're saying. I still think, I just watching Pat Mahomes, and I may be a little biased because I'm basing it off of, and I'm glad you made that point, I'm basing it off of his body of work, which he's been which is kind of unfair because he's been, a starting quarterback longer than Hurts. But again, man, to me, Patrick Mahomes, again, back to the point I was saying about the Chiefs, I know the Chiefs are not the same team. And and let me say this, maybe I'm biased because I really did expect the Chiefs to do a lot worse than what they are doing, simply because Hill is gone.
Right.
I'm not going to say I doubted Mahomes, but when you have a weapon like Hill, I'm like, of course there's Kelsey.
Right. Solid.
Right. Maybe go down as arguably as one of the best receiving tight ends of all time. Mm-hmm. But I just, I really expected the Chiefs. And again, to your point, you made another great point about the AFC West. I thought the AFC West would be a lot better than what they are. But I just thought losing a receiver, to me, Hill is irreplaceable. And to see Patrick Mahomes, I think the Chiefs, what are they? Are they 10-3 now? What is their record?
10-3. I want to say 10-3.
10-3.
And with that win against the Texans. And I will say this, so Patrick Mahomes finds any and everybody who's open. He's great at that. He's near unmatched at finding who's open and putting the ball on the money.
Right.
And it's up to you to catch it. And,
yeah.
And they brought in, the receiver Valdez Scantling, and they brought in, Juju from Pittsburgh.
Right.
And they have some pieces where he says I can just help spread it out. But I'm sorry that 100 catches and 1,700 yards, 12 to 15 touches combined, that's hard to replace. That speed without Tyreek Hill in the
Blows it out.
playoffs, we don't beat Buffalo. And I
Right,
think that's where it shows up is in the playoffs.
right,
Will
right.
you be able to get over that hump in the playoffs? And with Miami looming and of course Buffalo is out there, it's going to be a tough. The Bengals, who have the Chiefs number, that's the other team we lost to. That's going to be tough to win in the playoffs this year.
Well, let me ask you this: who do you think will have the toughest road out of those two? Because here's
Ah,
the thing: if you think about Hurts, and God
mhm,
forbid, let's just say they're going to end up with a first round bye,
correct.
and then it looks like the road is going to have to come through Philadelphia in order to
Hmm.
get out of the NFC. Um, I mean, of course, you brought up the point about the division being tougher as far as the NFC East, and I agree. It's getting back to the old days where whoever came out of the NFC East, it's you're going to be wounded going into the playoffs.
Correct.
But let's just
Correct.
forecast right now.
Hmm.
Who do you think has a rougher road? Is it
Uh,
Philadelphia or is it Kansas City? Because
I
who gets
I
that
think
buy in
Philly
the
does.
AFC? Who gets that buy in the AFC? It won't be who's the number one team in the AFC rather?
So technically the Bills are 11-3,
Okay,
Chiefs are 11-3,
okay.
and because the
And
Bills won the playoffs,
the
but
Bills at the top, if everything remains the same, if they win, if Kansas City, if they have the same record, the Bills, the edge will go to the Bills, right? Because they beat the Chiefs.
absolutely,
So they will
and
get the first. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, absolutely. But the Eagles, so I'm gonna name a few teams, and you say, well, Bills, Chiefs, Bengals, Titans,
Yeah.
not the same Ravens that they've been,
Right. They'll listen to
Dolphins,
the playoffs. Right. Right. Dolphins.
Chargers, Jets,
Maybe
Patriots.
the Chargers. Maybe wild card. Maybe.
But then you say Eagles, Vikings, 49ers, Cowboys, already that's tough all the way around. You got the Bucks may get in, the Giants, maybe Washington, the Seahawks. I mean, it feels like the NFC is harder right now. Like every single game is going to be like last year's playoffs on the NFC side, where it's going to be decided by a field goal or overtime or something
Right.
like that. That's what
Right.
it feels like. But having that first round bye is huge because again, somebody gets hurt every year
That's right.
in the playoffs, and you just want to if you can rest a little bit, I think that helps you kind of recharge.
Right. 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 So do you think? Sounds like you're saying the NFC is going to be the easier road.
The NFC is going to be harder to go through than the
Harder.
AFC.
Okay. So you're
Yeah.
saying the
So the Chiefs
NFC.
have the easier road.
Okay. Okay. And you basing it
Mhm.
off the teams, what you just named.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Maybe. 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 Maybe.
Right.
Maybe. I'm thinking about it now. You might have a point. Vikings, Cowboys,
Hmm.
Seahawks,
49ers.
49ers.
Uh, and again, it's that whether the Giants or Washington, Seattle, who gets in, we shall see.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
I could buy that. I could buy that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
now does Bill Belichick get in, and does he still have the same clout with the Patriots that he had when he had Tom Brady? Because they're 7-7, and they don't feel like a real threat.
They don't, but again, you always have to account for the coaching of Belichick. I agree with that.
Absolutely.
They'll get in with a wild card, but I believe they got in last year for a wild card, right? And they got bounced out of the first round.
Hmm.
I think it'll be the same result. I just don't think they
Right.
have enough. I think, coaching alone will get them there. Although,
Hmm.
I mean, this past week, that loss,
Ooh, that's
that was
terrible.
bad. I've never seen a Bill Belichick team go through that. And so I wonder, is that telling about what's going on with them? Because that was horrible. I mean,
Yeah,
just from a mental aspect, you don't see that from a Bill Belichick team.
not
So
at all.
yeah, that kind of mistake makes me
Hmm.
wonder if they're the same franchise. You know,
I, I don't think so. I mean, because in the 20 years that we watched, have you ever seen something like that?
never seen nothing like that,
You
especially
know,
with his team. He's
right.
always been. Its teams have always been well coached teams. Um, That was alarming to me. I've never seen that team.
Right. I
I'm
mean,
like, man, is it a dawn of a new day? I've never seen, because we know that his teams are always, they may not be the most talented, but they're going to play, it's going to be smart plays. And if they lose, they don't beat themselves. And so to see that and the aspect that it happened at the end of the game like that.
The score was tied. Okay. So I can see if they're down by 1 or down by 5 or 6. But the score is tied, and they're acting like they, about to lose. Take it to overtime.
Exactly.
You get the ball first, go score, get 6, whatever. But and him to throw it back, it looked like he threw it back 15, 20 yards.
That was horrendous. And I mean, I've never seen anything like that. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. I know I haven't seen it on the pro level. I don't think I've ever seen it in college. I don't even think you even see that in high school. That was such, I don't want to say dumb, but that was not I've never seen anything like that.
Absolutely.
Never seen
like that. Uncharacteristic.
Yeah.
Very uncharacteristic. So saying that Bill Belichick team does not scare me as much as it used to back in the day. They were tough to beat.
Right. And let me ask you this, while we're on the Patriots, and I'm pretty sure this has come up in your conversations as a football coach.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Brady, or was it a combination of Brady and Belichick? Because have they been the same without Tom Brady? Of course not. But is it fair to say that all those years we can give a lot of credit to Brady? I mean, we know Bill Belichick is a great coach. But are those days over with, of them being contenders or maybe contending for a Super Bowl?
So we know that we've seen a few things. One, we've seen Bill Belichick, and this is really before I was paying attention to who Bill Belichick was when he was with the Browns, right? He was not a great coach, but who really has been with the Browns, right? So he was not a great coach back then. And we saw that he was about to go to New York, I think, and then he flipped the switch at the last second, which was kind of shady to a lot of people.
Jets, right?
He going to the Patriots.
Yeah.
And so that kind of tells you a little bit about him. Now, we know that he's a jerk. We know that, but all great coaches don't have to be nice guys. That's perfectly fine. But we also know that Tom Brady was not viewed as the spectacular person coming out of college. So
definitely wasn't a good athlete. Yeah.
Definitely wasn't a good athlete. He didn't look in shape.
Right. Combine, that sprint in the combine was, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just had
you're good. it was something else.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, that's the point I'm making, though, right? You're looking at this guy and you're saying, what makes him so special? And the intangibles. It's the system fit. He sat and he learned for a little bit. When the time came, I don't know if he was super prepared, but he was prepared enough to start winning.
Right.
And he was winning so much where it was like, well, we don't really need, I want to say Drew Bledsoe to come in and play for us anymore, because we have our new and our future. And he was cheap back in the day.
Yeah.
And Bledsoe was, coming off of whatever he was coming off of. So all of a sudden that change is made. Now he has the confidence to say, I need to continue to be better so I can get that big contract.
Right.
And that love for the game and so forth. So he did what he was supposed to do. He started winning, and all the seasons weren't amazing, but he started winning games and eventually Super Bowls, which, and I'm gonna throw this out here, I'm a Tom Brady hater. Okay. So that's just part of what I do, because I think he's given too much credit for all the wins that he's had. But at the end of the day, like we said, he still wins games.
Okay. So while we're on it, let's talk about him, because I got that as one of my topics. Should Tom Brady retire? And if not, who should pick him up? And I'm glad you said that. I'm not a Tom Brady hater. I have to give him credit. And the reason why I give him credit is this. Well, let me say this. I always have this conversation with people, so-called football people who claim to know the game. I cannot get on a board with him being the greatest of all time. And the reason why is that I just have a hard time, and this some people say, well, that's very basic of you, Bate, but my quarterback, the greatest of all time, cannot be a guy who cannot on 3rd and 5 get me 5 yards with their legs. He can't do that.
Good point.
He cannot do that. I mean, 3rd and 5,
No.
he's not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And I will
Great
also
point.
tell people this. He benefited to me, him and Peyton Manning, those times that they were starting to quote unquote blow up. The league made a lot of provisions, in my opinion, to protect those final 2 quarterbacks who could not run.
Right.
And so for
Great
me,
point.
you know, I mean, I'm just being honest.
Great point.
I mean,
right.
In today's era, right when Brady was starting to blow up. Now, I have a little bit more respect for Manning because Manning, I mean, for him to be able to walk up to the line of scrimmage, read a defense, and call a play from there is remarkable. And I wish a lot more young quarterbacks, whether it be middle school, high school, would really take note of that, because you have to study that much film to be able to walk up to the line and read a defense. I mean, that is excellent. That is something that I encourage all young players to do, whether you be a quarterback or not, is to study that film to where you can read to the point, because that, well, you know that as a coach, studying that film and knowing different defenses, knowing different stances and everything, that's almost being ahead of the game. So I give Manning a lot more credit, but I feel like in that time, in that era, that the NFL made because, you know, let's be honest, the NFL got behind the offense, got behind the passing of the quarterbacks to the point where even defenses, when it comes to penalties, nowadays you can't hit quarterbacks. Back in the old days, and Jason, I hate to sound like this, but we from the same era. The quarterback was one of the toughest guys on the field because of what? He had to take that hit. There was no penalty being thrown. I mean, we've seen quarterbacks get destroyed. Lawrence Taylor would destroy quarterbacks, you know? And so I can't say he's the greatest of all time because I feel like the league preserved him. And if you go back and watch the New England Patriots, to me, when the Legion of Boom was there with Seattle, I think one of the reasons why the Legion of Boom was able to beat the Patriots, and I know they lost one year. They gave that game away.
Yes, they did.
I think one of the reasons why they were able to beat the Patriots is they just, whatever it took, they just hit him. They took the fine. They took the penalty because he doesn't like to be hit.
No.
Now, no quarterback likes to be hit, but if you ever watch him when he gets hit, he throws temper tantrums. He looks at the refs. He just can't stand it. And so I feel like the league preserved him.
I mean, he's 23 years in.
Exactly.
There's no other reason.
Exactly. Exactly. If he was getting hit like the average quarterback was getting hit, there's no way. And plus, he can't run. Defenses are faster. They're stronger. But in particular, nowadays, the NFL defense is 10 times faster than what it used to be. And so your quarterback in today's game has to be an athlete, in my opinion. 3rd and 5, he's got to be a dual threat quarterback. This guy has been able to last in the game simply because you cannot hit quarterbacks. That's just my opinion. Now, I do give him credit for this, is through his quote unquote historic run with the Patriots. One thing that I did appreciate about him is he didn't turn the ball over, and he did get the ball out quickly. A lot of quarterbacks take sacks and lose yards because they hold on to the ball too long. That was an exceptional skill that I thought, he had.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And his line, they did a good job protecting.
They did a great job, right?
It's protect this man at all costs. That's what people say these days, right? Protect this man at all costs. And to look at it though, when you get to and the reason I'm a Tom Brady hater, for one, is because I don't want him to be crowned the GOAT, right? The greatest of all times at QB. For one, because his stat line really does not show, minus the year he had Randy Moss, right? That was a crazy year, and they still lost the Super Bowl.
They lost the Super Bowl, yes.
But for instance, in the Super Bowls, I think that first one they played against the Rams was Spygate, right? And
The
all this,
cheating.
and the
Yes.
cheating,
Yes. Yeah.
the deflate gate, and they
Yeah.
have the text messages,
Yeah.
and you say, how is this man not guilty? Well, and so forth. And I know the old writer saying, if you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Right. Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
And I get all that. And I know they won a lot of games by field goals and
Right.
all that type of stuff. And the Seahawks should have run the ball.
Right. Oh
So
my God.
he's the beneficiary of all this
Right.
nonsense. San Francisco being up 21-3, not
Right.
San Francisco, Atlanta.
Atlanta. Yes. Yes.
Being up
Yes. Yeah.
21-3,
Yeah.
and you go,
They gave that game away.
gave it away. But at the end of the day, he won those. But when here's my biggest point, which I'm gonna talk about soon on my podcast, is the win over the replacement. Right when Tom Brady was hurt and Matt Castle stepped in, they were still 11-5.
That's right. I remember that.
But when Peyton Manning got hurt, they were 14-2, and they ended up being 2-14.
That's right. That's right.
That tells you that they can't do what Peyton Manning does.
Right. Exactly.
2-4. That's a whole different animal right there.
It's a different team. Everything. Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. So saying that, I mean, it's and again, like you said, reading the defense and figuring out exactly what teams are going to do, and then still putting the ball on the money and beating these defenses. That's crazy to watch. It was a spectacle to watch. Like, how it is when Jordan walked in.
Yes.
And everybody wanted to see what Jordan was going to do.
Yes. Yes.
That's what it felt like with Peyton Manning to me.
And again, and when I look at him and talking about Manning, like you said, I mean, think about it. I mean, he couldn't run either, and I'm not taking nothing away from him, but I give him a lot more credit because, again, I felt like a lot of the success in Indianapolis, and I even put the Broncos to a certain extent. I mean, he wasn't the same with the Broncos, but he was still a big factor to them getting to that Super Bowl that year. But I just admire the film study. I just admire, he didn't turn the ball over that much either.
Correct.
And I don't think his teams were as stacked as Brady's teams were. That's just my opinion. I mean, he had a hell of an offensive line. I mean, who doesn't win championships? I mean, Trent Dilfer won with the Ravens.
Trent Dilfer won.
You know what I'm saying? The offensive line, they don't get enough credit. Right. The offensive line of the Dallas Cowboys in the 90s. I didn't think Troy Aikman was a great quarterback, but you got 300-pound guys from tackle to tackle, that can block, all Pro Bowl. So, and then it's the same reason why Barry Sanders could never win a championship. He didn't have those offensive lines.
Correct.
So, but I give Peyton a lot more credit, even though they did preserve him. They did preserve Brady. But I just think, like you said, the factors that Brady had with him, you brought up an excellent point. All those things. And then, Belichick is a good coach. But it goes to my question now, because I think now, and people are going to call me a Tom Brady hater, and I asked this question, should he retire? And I say yes, because here's the thing. I think now Tampa Bay, I saw it, I think either last week or a couple of nights before. I'm starting to see them. That year they won the Super Bowl, they had, to me, and we found out, I believe, one of the best defenses in the NFL. And they didn't get a lot of credit until they won. I think they put it on Kansas City, that Super Bowl. And that's when people really had to give that defense credit, because that was the best offense in the league with the best quarterback. But now I started to see this happen with Tampa Bay. I said to myself, if that defense starts to taper down, if they start to not play at a high level or as high as they've been playing, you're going to get exposed. And the offensive line is good, but again, because he can't make plays outside of the pocket, he's 45 years old. He doesn't have the stud defense that he has. It's starting to show. And along with the league preserving him not to get hit, I think he should retire. I think it's too many things that have to be put in place for him to be on a team, for that team to be successful outside of himself. I think he has to go to a team that's established. He can't do, I'll use the Chiefs for a second. I'll go back to the point with Mahomes. Mahomes has the ability that if the offensive line has an off night, he can still make plays, whether it be in the pocket or out of the pocket. For me, Tom Brady, if he was to leave the Bucs, because he can't make plays with his legs, because he's 45 years old, the team he has to go to, in my opinion, has to have everything in place, and they just need a quarterback. And in today's league, how many teams are like that?
That's tough, and I'm gonna say for him, and I know it's gonna sound like a low blow, but he already sacrificed his family to go play football.
Yes,
right. He sacrificed his family, and it got ugly. Anytime you were a college athlete, the rule is keep everything in the locker room. We don't have to talk about all the stuff that happens on the outside.
Right.
The
distraction.
Exactly. And it that's how it goes. But once it gets out, it changes things. I think it directly changed how he's been playing this year because there are a lot of unnecessary things.
I didn't even think about that. I forgot about that. That's a great point.
So now, if somebody wants to pay you because you're single, and the wife is going to be, y'all going to be in these hearings and so forth, or settlements or whatever, and a chunk of your money, which she has her own money anyway. She had it before they were married.
We know that. We absolutely know that. We absolutely know that.
If somebody wants to pay him another 10 to 15 million to play 1 year with a signing bonus of whatever, it's like, well, go ahead. Now, do I think it's going to be a fruitful season? Absolutely not. But he can pick and choose where he goes. And like you're saying, who wants to take that chance on taking this 45-year-old man, 46-year-old man who's a great leader, but he doesn't have the arm that he used to have.
He doesn't have any legs on top of that.
No legs. And he's going to blame, yelling, like where's Bruce Arians right now who helped them win that Super Bowl? He's upstairs because of apparently, so they say there were some disputes, blah, blah, blah. But now Bruce Arians is a hard coach.
Yeah.
He's a yell at you, cuss at you. I'm the smartest man in the room. And Tom Brady's a yell at you, cuss at you. And it's butt heads, but they happen to win. But now their other coach is not necessarily the same, and therefore, but you're not getting the same result.
Exactly.
Is he going to go somewhere? I don't know where he goes. But if somebody's going to pay him, if I were him, I'm going to, as long as they keep paying, I'm playing.
I get it. Let's play devil's advocate. Who you think would benefit from him other than the Bucs? If he cuts loose from the Bucs, who picks him up? Or who should pick him up? Who does he fit with?
And when you're the Texans, you say, which is going to be the number one pick. You say, I don't need one guy when I'm going to get a brand new guy, Caleb Williams, most likely out of USC, right? We can
no. Hold on. I don't know. Can Williams come out?
See, I heard two different stories, so I don't know. I thought he was coming out, but somebody told me the other day that he's staying. So let me say, if he is coming out, I think that's who the Texans would pick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
him with a kid from Alabama, maybe.
And I don't know, but either one is better than 45, 46-year-old Brady, right? And then you say, well, are you looking at like Denver? Denver doesn't need that either. They have 3 wins, 4 wins. So that's not if I'm a franchise, unless it's just for ticket sales and money because he's going to bring the ticket sales, I'm not picking. I'm not trading.
That's why I asked that question because I can't see it. I don't know. I really think. I mean, dealing with him, you got to have the right coach. You got to have that's what I'm saying. It's too many things for me that has to be in place for him to be successful at another team. And I just don't think that there's a team out there that would do that. Maybe the teams that would want to do it, they couldn't. They don't have the structure to put around him.
Right.
I don't see it. I really think he should consider. I mean, I'm with you in a sense, in the player sense, that if the Bucks are going to pay him, I don't know what his contract stipulations are, but I mean, if they're going to pay him, yeah, of course, keep playing. And you
Yeah,
know,
it's not.
I'm a little bit worried for him in a sense, and I'm going to just allude to what you said earlier. That was an excellent point about his personal life. I don't know the extent to what happened between him and I think it's Giselle, if that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to me, what kind of makes me, I'm not going to say uncomfortable, but fearful of the guy is that the guy, it looks like the guy has not figured out a way to live life outside of football.
Right.
And
Right.
so what I'm worried about is, you know, um, how does that look in terms of him going to another team? And then, if I feel like he's staying too long,
Correct.
and I'm just worried about that personality going to a different team. I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
of course, people say, well, yeah, that's what you want to win. But again, he's not the guy that he used to be. That
Mm-hmm.
psyche, and him trying to be the perfect guy that people say that he tries to be,
Right. Right.
you know, how does that
Well,
work?
and I'm gonna ask you this because I'm gonna get a little personal if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
All right. Um, you know, we knew each other like since you played little league baseball. My little sister way back.
Right,
You were 2 years younger,
right.
and y'all were great. It was seven. So you've been an athlete almost since you've known you know what I mean
Right.
how to walk,
Yeah.
and you played basketball all throughout. We went to Westbury Christian and so forth, and you went on to play college and so forth. And when your last game was coming up, how did you feel when that last game was like? Did you feel like I want more, or were you like I've maxed it out? I'm done because again, playing as much basketball as you played because you were the name I'm throwing his name out there, Steve Shalin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Shout out to
It was
Coach
crazy.
Taylor, man. Yeah, yeah.
Coach Shalin, when I was working at basketball coach in Northbrook High School, he was subbing one day over there, and he was like, "Hey, wait, where'd you say you went to school at?" And I was like, "Oh, we
Sound
went to
just like
Westbury Christian." And he started talking about you, and he was talking about D
Jordan.
Bowles
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
George, and he was talking about just all the basketball y'all had played and hard
Right,
work and all the stuff y'all had to put in it. So, and I'm saying because you did that almost, it seemed like year round,
right,
right?
right,
So when you got to whenever your last year was, did you
right.
feel like you maxed it out and was like, I'm done? Or did you say, I wish I could still do some more?
Well, that's a great question. And this is why I'm glad you asked that, because this is why I'm worried about him.
Mm-hmm.
When I look back at my life, and I was able to do this when I got older. So, one thing about athletes, whether it be college athletes, high school athletes, or pro athletes in particular, what you have to remember is this. One of the most important things, and I'll stress this to young athletes and guys that are coming up, one of the most important things that you can do is when you get to the end of your career, that you end the way that you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is this. I've had 2 years of my life that were very, very difficult. My sixth grade year, when I was my first time in middle school, that was a difficult time for me because that was the first year that I couldn't play sports.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found myself getting into situations. Thank God I had a dad, a
Mm-hmm.
strong male example. I find myself getting into situations like, that was flirtation with getting in the gang. Of course, when you go to junior high, there's the
Mm-hmm.
girl situation. You're now sitting in class with grown women. And so when I didn't have sports, I think I played little league baseball, but at that time, I don't know if you remember back in the Missouri City days where you played dad's pitch, minor league, and then you go to pony.
Yeah.
Well, my sixth grade year, I was the first draft pick to go to pony. And then when you go, when you get drafted, you go to the worst team. So I went to the worst team and it just didn't work out, you know. And
Right.
so I wasn't playing sports. My grades dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, thank God my dad was there. Roll over to my 7th grade year, start playing basketball again. I got into AAU. I was recruited by Steve Salen, matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
And grades start to go back up. No issues with grades all the way up. Junior
Mm-hmm.
high, high school, college. School was always never an issue to me because, and I didn't realize this because I was playing basketball. And my
Mm-hmm.
mom drilled it in me earlier that if you don't maintain, of course, there was a no pass, no play, but if you don't maintain a certain average, I don't care, you don't play. And that was her standards.
Mm-hmm.
But fast forward to my first year after college basketball, my first year when I went into my master's program.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that fall, it was so difficult. And the reason why it was so difficult is because for the first time in my life, I'm conscious of is something going on with me. I'm depressed all day. And all I'm doing is, I mean, I'm working out, but I'm going to class. And I used to be hard on regular students because I'm like, man, y'all got it easy. You know, y'all don't have the rigorous schedule that a student athlete has.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to realize that why am I so depressed? Well, I'm depressed because I wasn't playing sports and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't finish my senior year like I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
So my personality, who I was, and a part of me, I started to realize that that was a part of my nature to be in sports. And when I really thought about it, school was hard because I'm like, why is it so hard? The material's not hard, but it was hard because I wasn't playing sports.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole time while I was in school, I was motivated because I was playing sports. And so in my mind, no pass, no play. School was kind of like the avenue I had to do to get to my passion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so back to my senior year in college, I had a great junior year. My sophomore year was good. My freshman year was okay. My freshman year, I had 2 freshman years because I had an injury my first year, and then I redshirted.
Mm-hmm.
But my college career, as far as on the court, was fulfilling until I got to my senior year. And when I got to my senior year, things were different. You know, we started to go a different direction. So I didn't finish the way I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't finish the way I wanted to, much like Brady. My life was kind of miserable outside of the court because I didn't finish the way I wanted to. I didn't conclude that chapter in my life because I was like, man, I'm you know, I still had the love for the game, but it was so much so that I was like, you know what? I'm not happy in school because something is missing. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't finish the way I wanted to finish. So there was still that yearn to play, still that, you know, I still can play. I was still working out hard. So I'm like, man, why am I doing this? You know, most people, when they done with their career, they done with their career. Well, I didn't finish the way I wanted to, and it wasn't a part of my life. I missed the schedule. I missed the guys. I missed the camaraderie. So once I figured out that's what it was, and I had to come to a conclusion that it was over, I started to build myself. I started to see myself and accept myself outside of the sport. And that's when life started to get easier. But that's why I say I worry about Brady because I still see that in him where he's not finished. And so he's dragging himself out because he's never considered or never said, okay, I can't do this anymore, or let me accept the fact that I'm done. You see what I'm saying? So I'm scared he's gonna hurt himself. And you know, sometimes with athletes, if you stay too long, you start to look bad.
Yes, you do.
And I'm thinking that's what's going on with him. I don't want him to go out like that. I'm not a Tom Brady fan, but I know where he's at in terms of, you know, he didn't finish, and I don't know why he didn't think he finished, but I do I empathize with him in that so much of himself is wrapped up in that sport.
Yes, it is. And what you said, I mean, I thought like two things that you said hit the nail on the head for me. For one, you said that when you're done and then that depression hits, and it sets in. And if anybody who's ever struggled with depression, it comes out of nowhere and it sits on you. And people who've never dealt with it don't understand. Just, oh man, it's no problem. Just be fine. And that's not the answer. So for one, I think that's what started to happen. That routine, that camaraderie, all that you just said was the reality. Like I don't have this anymore, and I really want to get it out of my system. And he had an opportunity, so he took it. For one, and for two, they did just win a Super Bowl, and you would think that should be the pinnacle and so forth. And they crowned him the greatest of all time at that point because he's won more than anybody had won. But again, but now what? What do I do now?
Exactly.
Like, do I go on to being an announcer? Right. I don't think so. Do I go on to be a coach? Do I just be a stay-at-home dad?
Right.
That's a very hard transition from going from the greatest, arguably, that year to nothing,
And let me interrupt. And maybe it's something, and see, this is another factor about it. There could be something in his life where he's lacking somewhere, and he thinks his only value is on that football field.
Great point.
And without that, who is he? And he doesn't want to take the courage to start over. He doesn't want to take the courage to develop a new identity. So you have to have the courage to say, that's it. And you have to say, okay, I am somebody in another light, or I can work towards being somebody in another, way of life. For me, when I got to grad school, what I started to really enjoy was my writing. I was doing a lot of writing in grad school and I enjoyed it. And, the success that I started to have in grad school, and some of it came with outside validation. And I really acknowledged the fact that, you know what? I do have talent in other areas, and I can be somebody outside of being a basketball player. And so, but that takes courage. That takes you saying, okay, I'm going to try to build myself outside of the game, and so to me, it could be that he's lacking the courage, or he looks at himself as being insufficient to move on without football,
Absolutely.
I look at it, me and you look at it. Well, look, he's got all the money in the world. He's heralded as one of the greatest football players of all time. It seems like when you look from the outside looking in, he's got a family. It looks like his family is healthy. They got all the money in the world. Why would he cherish that? Why wouldn't he step to that? But, it could be that he's lacking some, he doesn't have confidence in that. And athletes, one of the beautiful things I can enjoy about Magic Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, is look at their second careers. Look at what they've done in the business world. Now Magic's situation, of course, was very, very, unique, but Magic could have given up,
Absolutely.
Right. And look how successful he's been in that second career. But that takes courage.
Because he's had some failures.
Exactly.
He had a lot of positives and a lot of failures. And those positives just continue to outweigh those failures. And he never, from what we saw at least, never sat on the fact that he failed in something. Because again, looking at Magic's career, being a top draft pick, trying to win national championships and winning in the pros and so forth, and having his career cut short. And then, it's like you said, now what? Well, you know
Right.
what? I'm going to continue to find something different I can be successful in.
Right. Right. And a credit to Magic, and I don't mean to cut you off. A credit to Magic, though. People have said that Magic always had that business savvy, even when he was playing. He was doing business things. Even when he signed his first contract with the Lakers, they didn't want to pay him what they ended up paying him, but Magic had some kind of business sense. I think for Tom Brady and a lot of athletes, part of them being great or quote unquote great, whatever you want to call them, is that so much of their personality is wrapped up in the game. And, it you have to be able to break away from that, and you have to be able to envision yourself outside of the game. That takes courage.
Somebody said, this sport is what I do, is not who I am.
Exactly.
And I wish I could remember who said that, but that's really what a lot of people forget. It's you're doing this, you're competing in this sport, but this does not define you. So because again, when I tell my athletes, there's a difference when it comes to having fun, because playing sports is fun. It is fun. It's not always fun. Sometimes it's brutally difficult, but then there's a point where you have to stop having fun and it turns into real life.
Right.
And for people like Kobe, he was 40.
Right.
And all of a sudden now I'm going to go, go into real life, if you want to say so. Right. And sometimes, like for others, it's 7th grade, you got cut from the team, and now you got to, so whatever that may be. But then again, though, this is what you're doing for fun, but real life is going to take over at some point for everybody, for every athlete. And I don't know. And like you said, I really want to find out what it is that's making him continue on. And let's see how long he wants to continue on. Tom Brady wants to continue on and play football, because that clock has been ticking.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, he's benefited from a league that's protected him. If he played in the 90s, I guarantee he wouldn't be around right now.
There's no way. There's no way.
But I mean, it's a league that, they benefited off of him too. They made a lot of money, and they made a lot of money off the Patriots, and they coddled the Patriots a lot. But again, I mean, we could go all day about that. I have my feelings, and you said
Absolutely.
But let's stay with football. I want to ask you another thing. I want to get your opinion on this, and because I think you have some good insight on this as far as a coach. But I want to talk about Lamar Jackson. Now, we definitely, well, I'll get your opinion on this. My opinion is he should be paid.
I agree.
The Ravens should pay him based on what he's done, his accomplishments. I mean, he's been a league MVP. I mean, he's got stats out the world. He's phenomenal.
Yes, he is.
He's coming up, and we know that he's representing himself. He doesn't have an agent. He's negotiating on himself. Now, the Ravens did not pay him. He wanted to get paid prior to this year. And the Ravens chose to wait. And I was kind of bitter about that. They've publicly, John Harbaugh has said that he's our guy. Seeing some of the things, I haven't seen a quarterback that electric since Vic.
Right.
And even the criticism that he's gotten, criticism about his arm. He's overcome that. He's becoming a real good pocket passer.
Which is hard.
Yeah, exactly. And my question to you is this. He's got an NFL MVP. He's breaking records left and right. What should the Ravens pay him on a yearly basis? And I ask you that because, I looked at some things now. Patrick Mahomes, I believe he won an NFL MVP, right?
Yes.
Okay. Josh Allen just got a contract from the Buffalo Bills where he's making $258 million for 6 years. That averages about $43 million a year. Now, Mahomes, of course, has got the you know,
Crazy contract.
10-year deal contract. And his average annual salary is about $45,000. Okay. Is of course stretches a longer time, but annually it's right around that time. How much should the Ravens pay Lamar? Now, keep this in mind when you answer this question. Deshaun Watson just got this contract from Cleveland. And I think Deshaun, if I'm correct, he's probably totaling out. I think he's got the biggest contract as of lately. He's got 5 years for $230 million, which comes up to about $46 million a year. You got Josh Allen, 43. You got Mahomes, 45, 44. You got Watson, who's at 46. Where do you think Lamar Jackson deserves to be paid on a yearly basis from the Ravens?
I think that there's been a huge disservice that's happening, and I'm not a fan of you representing yourself, because when you do that, you have to get emotionally involved. You have to, right? And when you do so, these guys are paid, these agents are paid to do the hard work for you, go and get all the details for you, do the hard negotiations for you without emotions involved, or fewer emotions involved. And yes, if you can, do that for yourself and you keep your own money, that's fine. But I think that he's going to get somewhere around 26, 27 million. And what I think he deserves more than that. But I think that I would say that if his agent were there, he'd get upwards of 32-ish, 33-ish.
So you don't think he would be in no neighborhood of those guys I just named?
40? I think he should be, but right. I don't think they're going to. And I say that because they're going to wait him out. They're going to say, we'll give you these I forgot the name of it, the 1 year deal, franchise tag.
Right.
They'll tag him and say, okay, so now you're going to get 25.
So okay, you think they'll give him that treatment because he doesn't have an agent?
I think so, because I think that's when they say it's a business. It is 100% a business, and you're great, you're good and all, but you know what? We'll find a new QB next year, because realistically, have you won us a Super Bowl? And
I think that's why they waited him out too.
Yeah,
I think the fact that he gets hurt and he hasn't won a Super Bowl. So that's an interesting point, and that's a good point. It also goes into boxing. As far as we're talking about the Terrence Crawford and all that, but we'll get to that later, the Terrence Crawford situation. But let's harp on that, because you made a good point. You think he's worth what these other guys are making?
A little bit less.
Okay, a little bit less. Okay, and then, of course, I mean, for two reasons, I could see why they wouldn't give him that, in the sense that because of he gets hurt a lot. Correct. And the way he plays, he's going to get hurt, But let's harp on that point. He doesn't have an agent. What does that do for an organization that's trying to negotiate with an athlete? Now, you may have touched on it, but I want you to harp on that a little bit more. Tell me why.
I think that, for one, when you're at practice, you cannot be in negotiation, right? When you're supposed to be practicing, your agent can do those things for you, and those NFL schedules are demanding and more. And every time you win and lose a game, there's a million things that go on. Those locker room guys, once they start hearing about the money and so forth, they start trying to get you to, hey, we can win more games if you get a cheaper contract, and then you help sign this guy. And some of those guys are talking about, man, I'm only getting 12 million, but the guy in the other position is getting 15 million. And all those types of things are going on that you don't have to deal with when you're not dealing with your own contract. Somebody else is doing the negotiations for you. So, and everybody knows now that he is arguing for, negotiating for himself. So the companies realistically know that you are not a lawyer. You are not specifically trained in this area. They do know certain things, like, when Master P was trying to be an agent for Ricky Williams back in the day and gave him what they call one of the worst contracts of all time. And it was like, well, you can get this, but realistically, here's what you're getting, which was nowhere near what his worth was. They took advantage of it. They jumped on that because they knew this is not what it's supposed to be, but so be it. It's a business. And I think that it's not right, but it's fair. That's what they're going to do. They're going to take advantage of the fact that he may not know all the loopholes and all the things. He might come in saying, "Hey, I want Pat Mahomes money. I want Josh Allen money," and they're going to say, "Well, let's talk about how we can get you there. Is it all going to be guaranteed? How much is going to be guaranteed versus how much is not?" And again, at the end of the day, when you're the numbers sound great until you find out how much is guaranteed.
Right.
So,
right. So now
those are
business. They'll
yes.
take advantage of it. That makes sense. That makes sense. I never considered that because when I asked that question, I'm thinking about, and again, I use the comparative approach. I'm looking at Mahomes. I'm looking at Josh Allen. I'm looking at Deshaun Watson. I'm looking at probably Lamar is more comparable, and I'm not saying physically or style-wise, but as far as his accomplishments, Josh Allen. Even though Josh
Correct.
Allen doesn't have an NFL MVP, as far as his success and what he means to the Bills, Lamar might be that and more. And I'm looking at it going, if Josh is getting this, and of course Mahomes is getting that, and Mahomes is probably the outlier in terms of he's got an NFL MVP and he's got a Super Bowl.
Correct.
So I'm saying to myself, Lamar couldn't possibly go in there and say that he wants the same as Mahomes. The Ravens will turn around and say, "Hey, you haven't won a Super Bowl."
Correct.
So I'm thinking he's going south of the 44 million that Mahomes has got. But being that Josh has gotten what he's gotten, I'm sitting there saying to myself, if I'm Lamar, I'm saying this, hey, Josh has got this. He doesn't have an NFL MVP. Deshaun Watson hadn't done nearly what I'm doing. But that's a good point. And that's a great point in terms of the business, because I'm kind of feeling the same way about the Bud Crawford situation in boxing. Have you heard about that?
I have not.
Well, I'll tell you about it in a little bit, but I mean, you bring up a great point about taking advantage of a person that doesn't know the business. And I never thought about that. I'm just looking at these other quarterbacks saying, well, he can get somewhere in the neighborhood. But because he doesn't know the business, and in the business mind setting, a company, when you're doing business, they're going to do business that favors them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to look at it, can he, if he plays under that franchise tag and they tag him and he gets 28, 29 million for 1 year, that's a crazy amount of money to get in 1 year, right? Crazy amount of money to get in 1 year.
Something like that. Yeah.
But what if, and the next year it goes up even more? What does happen when you get hurt? Now granted, there's a contract year, I believe, right? There's a contract year for him.
Yeah.
So does he walk and go somewhere else? Do they let him walk?
Right.
And how deep does he go into the playoffs this year to give him more negotiating, chips, I guess, and I hope that he does well, and I hope that young man gets paid all that he is due, because I know for a fact, knowing, talking to some of my friends who played in the NFL, they say, "We love you, but we got to let you go." Sorry.
Yeah.
Bye. I have a player playing for the Denver Broncos right now. He played for me my first year coaching at Northbrook.
Right.
He played basketball, ended up going to Florida, and he's playing out there now. And you have to kick, fight, everything you have to just to stay on that roster when you are not that number one guy.
Right.
So it's tough, but I do want to hear what about the boxing, because we've heard stories of how boxing and management can be very similar.
Right. Well, yeah, here's the thing. So right now in boxing, okay, there's a fight at the 147-pound division, which is the welterweight division. Right now it's considered to be the darling division, and we can attribute that to the emergence of Floyd Mayweather, what he's done in boxing in terms of the quote unquote green print, the money making. Right now at the welterweight division, and there are two boxers in particular that's getting a lot of airtime. One by the name of Errol Spence, okay, who fights out of Dallas, Errol Spence is in the welterweight division. There's 4 different belts that one can obtain.
Okay.
And these are all 4 different boxing commissions, meaning that these are organizations who they have a belt they sanction, they rank fighters. And so those 4 different commissions is the World Boxing Organization, which is the WBO, the WBA belt, which is the World Boxing Association. WBO is World Boxing Organization. I'm sorry. IBF is the international belt. I may be saying that wrong.
Federation, maybe.
Yeah, Federation. IBF. There you go. And then there's the green belt, which most people think hold in the highest regard, which is the WBC, World Boxing Council belt. So in the welterweight division right now, Errol Spence from Dallas, with a record of 28-0, 22 knockouts, holds 3 of those belts: WBC, WBA, IBF. Terrence Bud Crawford, hailing out of Omaha, Nebraska, holds the WBO belt. Now, one of the highest achievements in boxing is to become undisputed. And what we mean by undisputed is you have all the belts. That is the highest achievement in terms of boxing, the sport itself. Now, of course, Floyd has changed the game in a sense that Floyd has changed the game financially based off of his boxing skills and his business sense. He has changed the game of boxing where he has used his skills and learned negotiating power to where he's able to box for a large amount of money, and pretty much dictate the terms of the boxing match, where we're going to fight, what ounce gloves we're going to wear, things like that. And some people call that the A side versus the B side. The A side fighter, which is the guy that gets to negotiate or pretty much favor all the terms. Where we're fighting, what gloves you're going to wear, what weight. I mean, of course, we're fighting in the welterweight division, but they dictate everything, what kind of ounce gloves we're going to play. So right now in boxing, the biggest fight in boxing is at the 147-pound division with Errol Spence holding 3 belts, Terrence Bud Crawford holding 1 belt. Now, of course, Errol Spence, a goal of his is to become undisputed, which is to snatch that 1 belt from Terrence Crawford. Both of them are on the pound-for-pound list for boxing. But the issue is this. Errol Spence is being represented by a man by the name of Al Heyman. And Al Heyman runs a boxing promotion company called Premier Boxing Champions, where he's got different different fighters on his promotional company. Now, Errol Spence, under the guidance of Al Heyman, who is his promoter, and Al Heyman does business with Floyd as far as promotion. Now, Floyd has his own team, the money team, but which kind of partners with PBC, Premier Boxing Champions. Now, the goal of Errol Spence, along with Al Heyman's plan, is for Errol Spence to become undisputed. Now, he's cleaned up, and you'll hear this phrase in boxing, his side of the street, meaning he's did all the heavy lifting. He's beat the guys he needed to beat to obtain 3 of the 4 belts. Terrence Bud Crawford, who some say is pound for pound the best boxer in the world based on his achievements. Now, Crawford, who's undefeated, has been undisputed before at another weight class, a lower weight class. So he's moved up to this 147, right? So arguably, people are saying he's the number 1. Now, this is the fight that all hardcore boxing fans want because it's for undisputed. Whoever wins gets all the belts, and that's the king of the welterweight division. Well, when it's time for business negotiation, Bud Crawford, talking about not having an agent, he was with another promotional company called Top Rank Boxing. He left them. He's actually currently suing them. So when he came to the table to negotiate, he was negotiating on his own. And so the fight didn't happen, and there were certain rumors. Now, what Bud was coming to the table, meaning Terrence Crawford, that's his nickname, Bud Crawford. He was coming to the table arguing from a business sense that he was the A-side fighter, meaning that he should be able to dictate terms because of his resume.
Right.
But what Earl and Al was contending is we're fighting at this weight class, 147 welterweight. Well, we've got 3 of the belts at this class. We should be the A side. And so negotiations failed. Now, one rumor was this. Bud Crawford, as far as coming to the table, what Al Heyman was proposing was this. You know, we're going to get the bigger half of the pie because we're the A side. And what Bud was saying was, well, I want to see the books since I'm not getting a guaranteed person. That's what it really was. Let me rewind. Bud wanted a guarantee. And Al Heyman said, Errol Spence, this is going to be a pay-per-view event. Errol Spence is a pay-per-view star. I know what Errol Spence can guarantee because he's got a track record of being on pay-per-view. You, on the other hand, you're a great fighter, but you've never been on pay-per-view. So I'm not going to make you a guarantee, okay? Because I don't have any evidence to show how much you're worth. Many people believe that because Bud doesn't have a promoter at the table with him, that's one of the reasons why he wasn't able to get a guarantee. Now, with that all being said, and I'm going to let you speak on this, Bud turns around and says, well, I want to see the books. Well, Al says, no, you don't get to see the books. You don't get to see the rest of the event. Because at the end of the day, you're not guaranteeing us nothing. You're not invested in this company. Now, if you're going to be a part of this company, you can see the events. Because Bud wants to say, I want to see who's fighting on the undercard. Since I'm not getting a guarantee, I should be able to see. And they say, no, wait. Can't do that. You know? And so that was the rumor. Okay. Then it came out, and I'm gonna let you spin on this because again, you was talking about not having an agent, and a lot of people feel like that's why Bud couldn't get what he wants because he doesn't have an agent. He doesn't understand the business. Some people say, and I probably agree more with this side, is that Bud did agree to all the terms, which was the B side terms. You know, he wouldn't get a guarantee, but he turned around. And in the midst of these negotiations, because he's representing himself, he was saying that PBC, Al Heyman, and them were saying that they wanted to fight in 2023. Well, Bud didn't have a fight in 2022. So he turns around and says, I want to fight now. They said, well, we're not fighting now. So he goes out and finds like another independent promoter, goes home to Omaha, Nebraska, picks up a quick $10 million. Now people say, well, you can't fault him for going to get $10 million. Okay. No. What Earl Spence and Al Heyman saying is he could have told us that. You know, he never told us that. He never told us that he had another fight. Okay. But a lot of people say the negotiations failed because he didn't have a promoter who had a business background. And the justification behind that is saying that if you have a promoter, they're able to go to the business table with the other promoter and at least guarantee something because they know the business. They know in order to have an event, you got to be able to, in order for us to promote an event, a boxing event, somebody's got to be able to say, okay, we have business sense. You guys provide this, we'll provide that. Correct. And so when you were making that comment about Lamar not having an agent, it kind of made me think about the Earl Spence and Terrence Bud Crawford agent, because I got a theory here, and I'm going to ask you this because we're talking about this. This is funny how this relates, but I'm telling people now, I think the only way the fight is going to happen, and I'm thinking business sense, if I'm Al Heyman, okay, Bud, you want to fight my guy, okay? I got 3 of the belts in this division. I control this division. The only way I give you this fight is if you join us for a 3-fight deal. Ooh. You sign with us, fight Earl. Now, of course, whoever wins, you get a rematch clause.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, you fight a third fight. Because if I lose the belts, my company, I want the belts to stay with me.
Absolutely. That's smart though. Very
That's
smart.
my
That's actually
theory.
pretty genius. That's actually pretty genius.
That's my theory. That's how the fight gets done. Because again,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have a promotional company,
Mm-hmm.
business wise. What I got on the line is this: if my fighter loses, I need to be able to have the belts in my company.
Correct. Correct. I mean that makes a lot of sense. And again, if you are with me and we lose, I still get a chunk of that, and the belts are still with me. If you're not with me and I lose, that's
How do I
it.
win? Right? How do I get a fair share in this? And you don't have
Yeah.
a promoter. You're not guaranteeing me nothing at the
No.
table, business wise.
So in business, how many times does somebody do business and say you get everything you want and I get almost nothing? Right? Like that's just not how business really works. You
Right.
know, it might be 60-40, 55, 40, 45, or rarely ever just pure 50-50, but nobody's going 90-10. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's
So
not
that was
happening.
my theory. I think that's the only way because Bud doesn't have, and of course, again, he doesn't have a promoter. Now,
Mm-hmm.
does he have more negotiation power because this past fight, the fight he got 10 million on, he did do uh a pay-per-view event in Omaha. Yes, that gives him a little bit of legitimacy in terms of because he didn't have a record with pay-per-view. So now I
Okay.
have some numbers to kind of somewhat value you on pay-per-view. But again, if you want this fight, this is supposed to be a legendary fight.
Mm-hmm.
In order for me to think it's fair, if I'm PBC, sign a 3-fight deal. Fight my guy twice, and then fight. He's been talking about fighting another guy that's in my company that's in a higher weight class that's also undisputed. So fight my guy twice in your weight class, and then fight the other guy at the top class who's also my fighter. If you want to fight,
How much money does each fight bring in? Would you guess, or if you know, for this weight class?
well, see, that's the thing. That's what the problem is because again, my guy Earl Spence is a pay-per-view star.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he brings in how many pay-per-view buys? I can't even think off the top of my
No,
head.
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
But
But it's a good chunk of change.
yeah, but with him and along with Tank, him, Tank, and Canelo are the top pay-per-view guys.
Mm-hmm.
So I know
Yep.
what I'm gonna get with him.
Mm-hmm.
With the other guy, I don't know. I don't have any
Mm-hmm.
numbers. He's never fought on pay-per-view before.
Right.
So I
Right.
don't know how to value him. You see what I'm saying? I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
to why would I guarantee him money and I don't know what he's worth on pay-per-view? I know
Right.
what my guy is worth. That's why my guy should get. That's why my guy should be the A side. My guy has all the belts,
Mm-hmm.
and I know what he's worth. You don't have a promoter, so you got to go my way.
And again, that would be a bad business deal. I'm not going to do business with you if I don't know what you're going to bring to the table.
Exactly.
Right. I'm
Exactly.
bringing in 90%, but you want 50%. There's no way.
Yeah, you got to show me some numbers or something to show that you're worth that. You know, you got to show me that it, based on your past performances, you're going to bring in this money no matter what. See, the thing about Canelo Alvarez is this. We know that Canelo Alvarez is worth such and such. We know what he's going to do. There's proof in the numbers to show how much he does.
Absolutely.
So,
and I like Canelo. My students would be talking about Canelo, Triple G, Canelo, and they got me wanting to go watch. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Who's gonna win this fight?
Yeah.
And again, and when you do have a very entertaining fight, you know what I mean? You gotta love the fact that I want to see what's going to happen next.
Right.
You know. So no, that's a great point. I would love to see how this pans out because now you got me invested in
it. Yeah. Well, man, you get a chance, check it out. It's really
Absolutely.
good, man. It's really teaching a lot about business in the boxing game, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But let's move to the NBA and then we'll wrap it up after maybe about 2 more. I want to get your opinion on some things in the NBA.
Okay.
Let's talk about this. Now, recently, the NBA has decided to redesign and rename many of its individual awards.
Right.
In particular, I want to ask you about these and how you feel about them. Okay, the Sixth Man of the Year award has been named after John Havlicek.
All right.
The most
Fair.
improved player is named after George Mikan.
All right.
The Rookie of the Year has been named after Wilt Chamberlain.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to basically really get your opinion on these last two. The most valuable player is named after Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And the Defensive Player of the Year is named after Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon.
Okay. All right. So let's start with Havlicek. That's obviously an old schooler, right? No disrespect to Havlicek and anybody listening that has that respect and love for Havlicek or Mikan, but absolutely, from what I understand, that was a hard-working person that came in and played the game the right way and stuff. I'm okay with that, but I did not watch Havlicek play enough. I only saw highlights and clips. I don't even know, what his last year was, but I do know who Havlicek is. Right. Everybody knows of George Mikan and the Mikan drills. Right. And he's a improvement guy. That makes plenty of sense to me.
I agree with that. Yes.
I don't know about Rookie of the Year for Wilt.
Okay, tell me why.
I don't know because I don't know his rookie year stats. I know a lot of his other stats, like when he averaged like 50 and 30 one year. I know stuff like that. I know he averaged a ton of rebounds, and he put up crazy points. I just don't know his rookie of the year if it was that memorable. I thought Kareem had a really good, memorable rookie year from my understanding. But I don't know. Now, Defensive Player of the Year, again, that's us growing up in Houston, watching Olajuwon, consistently play great basketball in an era where you got no order. You got Pat Ewing, you got Shaq, you got David Robinson. The list goes on of just really rock solid, diverse centers. Big Shaq was big and strong. And then, you had like David Robinson, who was slim and can move, and Ewing can shoot from the outside. There's a lot. And he played all of those guys very well.
Right.
Plus, he got a lot of steals on top of the block.
Exactly.
And he blocked John Stark's shot to help them win that first championship. That's Defensive Player of the Year. I'm okay with that. Now, I don't know how many Defensive Player of the Year awards he won, or if somebody won.
I don't either.
That's tricky.
Yeah,
that is tricky to me. So did somebody win like 3 or 4?
I don't know, but do you think is there anybody in his prime defensively, or is there anybody defensively that you think could also be named for this award?
Gary Payton, the glove.
Olajuwon?
No. I was just giving the extra.
I was just saying, you had to contend Olajuwon for this award.
Right.
Who would else?
Yes.
You say?
I love the pick, and I think that there's only one other person besides the glove is a crazy old Dennis Rodman, but you don't want him representing your trophy. You know what I mean? You don't. But I think that the glove is just a great name. But hands down, it goes to Olajuwon, straight up. Okay. And the MVP award, I think the only choice for what Michael Jordan has done for the game, he revolutionized it in more ways than one. Just coming in and having that will to win, and then the dream team. Everybody wants to see Jordan. Y'all cool, Barkley. Y'all cool. Whatever. Y'all cool. But we really want to see Air Jordan. And nobody born in our era can't say that they hadn't said, sometimes I dream. Right. And that's why I think that MVP trophy that's legit. It should be named after.
I'm with you on the 6-man most improved rookie of the year. I'm kind of iffy on those.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because now Mike, and yes, I agree with you on Mike, and because he does represent getting better. He does represent putting in the time and work and being improved.
Mm-hmm.
Rookie of the year, um, I always think of Wilt as being a dominant center. I think of Wilt being unstoppable. Him and
Mm-hmm.
Shaq are the most dominant. So I have to
Absolutely.
go back and look at a rookie of the year. I mean, to me, rookie of the year, who had a very impactful rookie of the year? Maybe Magic Johnson when he came in.
Absolutely.
You know, I think they kind of, to me, they just wanted to include Wilt because he was a great. That's just my
I
opinion.
agree.
Um, Elijah One definitely, and simply because for this,
Mm-hmm.
the steals, you made a great point on that. Elijah One was the first person that I've seen, and I'm not saying that this is the end all be all, just my experience. I've seen block shots before for big
Mm-hmm.
men. I've seen big men, dominate games with block shots. But I've never seen anybody, when we start talking about the art of blocking shots, and I'm even saying this over Mutombo, because I think Mutombo could be named for this award too.
The bad boy.
And the glove, that's a good pick too. But for me, Elijah One is hands down over everybody else because this is the first guy that I've seen who blocks shots with an art. And what I mean by that is he blocked shots. And not only did he block shots, but he blocked shots and turned them into fast breaks.
Yeah, he did.
He got so good that he was blocking shots to start possessions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's one thing to block shots to, you know, intimidate, because Patrick Ewing at Georgetown, I mean,
Yeah.
he's a monster. But I've seen
Uh-huh.
one get so great at it that he would actually block shots to where it looked like he was passing to
Mm-hmm.
guards on his team to start the break.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, he changed the art of shot blocking to me. And some people say, well, that's crazy, but I'm telling you, I've seen him do it where I've watched games where it's like, I know he could have thrown it into the stands, or I know he could have thrown it off the glass. And I've seen him keep the ball in play. Like, think about that. Him being able to block shots so well that no matter where he went to get the ball, to block it
Mm-hmm.
rather, he was going to put it in play and get it to a teammate. It's almost like he was
Right.
rebounding it out of the air and throwing an outlet pass.
Oh
I've
yeah.
seen Elijah One do that. Almost time. So you talking about getting a lot out of a defensive possession?
Oh yeah. I mean, that to me right there. What you're saying is, I wholeheartedly agree. He was he revolutionized what it meant to play his position, because he not only did that defensively, he played so well on the offensive end as well. I want to say he had a quadruple double
Right.
with blocks, and all, and you go, and this dude is a monster.
Yeah,
What can't he do? You
right,
know. So
right,
no, I'm all for Elijah One with that one for sure.
right.
And
And I don't want people to think that's watching this podcast, they're gonna say, well, you guys are from Houston. No, I'm being serious. You can go look at the numbers. I
correct.
mean, this guy was a monster on the defensive end. I mean, he was a
Oh
monster
yeah.
in the offensive end too, but I'm just saying Elijah One changed the game as far as block shots to me. No disrespect to Kareem, Wilt, Shaq, nobody like that, but
Mm-mm.
this
And
like
and I did look up Wilt's rookie numbers, and it said he averaged like something funky like 37 points and 27 or 23 rebounds or something like that for
okay,
as a rookie.
okay then
My bad. My bad.
okay.
I
Well
I
then
didn't
I'm
know.
glad you looked that up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We with you. We with you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. Those are crazy numbers. No, I'm gonna throw this out there though. And because I have a GOAT episode coming out eventually where I talk about the greatest of all times in different sports. And when people throw in Wilt and Bill Russell, I say we can't have those guys in the argument, only because there was about 12 or 13 teams in the NBA back then. And
Good
that's just
point.
not a big enough sample size,
Right.
you
That's
know.
a good point.
But you still have to put up crazy numbers. And those were crazy numbers. So
Right. Let me know when you had that show because I want to get in on that show because that I got
Love
some
to.
points about that because I mean even for me the GOAT, oh man, that's a fire show. We'll wait to that show.
Absolutely.
I got some
I'll
questions about
gladly
it.
have you.
Yeah, but even with Jordan, yes, of course MVP, and for me it's simple. Um, if you think about the Dream Team, I think that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
greatest teams ever assembled, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He kept all of those guys within his reign on top. He kept all those guys from winning a championship.
Yes, he did.
I
Yes, he
mean,
did.
from 91 to 98,
Mm-hmm.
other than the Rockets, and that's because he left, nobody else won.
Nobody won.
Nobody won. So, I mean, and for him to do what he did on the court, and even off the court, what Jordan did in terms of the shoe game and making money for athletes, in terms of contracts. I think he was the first one to get a $30 million 1 year contract
I thought so.
and the endorsements with McDonald's and all that. I mean, of
Mm-hmm.
course, which leads me to my next question. And we got one more question after that. Who should be the new logo?
Some,
And tell me why. Because the logo is significant.
it is, and it's right now. It's very simple, right? It's a very simple logo. Jerry West, right? Very simple logo, and that's fine. It works. But they were saying, well, if it is Jordan, you can't put his
Jump.
yeah,
Right.
you can't put that up there because that's already under copyright. Do you buy that out? And that's tough. I don't know because it should be something that's signature, right?
So
And
good. Good. Now tell me why. Tell me what should embody the logo. Because I'm glad you said that. What goes into that?
I think that it has to be something recognizable and something that people like want to imitate, right? And like nobody imitates the current logo, right? But like the Heisman, you see people, they'll do that all day long. They make songs about it, do the Heisman,
Right, right,
and more. And I think that has to be something like that. And that dunk that he did, the free throw line dunk, when or when he's spreading his legs, those are iconic. But I think it would have to be something like that, because one, again, that's something that's recognizable. Even people who have never seen Jordan play,
right,
right? Most of the kids out here today, they've never seen Jordan play, not even on anything, but they're still going to flock to buy the shoes.
right,
You have to have something like that has to be recognizable for one, and two, you can't have it be again like if when Charles Barkley went over to China, a lot of people knew who he was, but everybody didn't know who he was.
right,
But
right.
then you say, well, but when Jordan goes somewhere, everybody knew who Jordan was, and
Exactly.
everybody knew who Kobe was.
Right.
Those are the only two people that, in my opinion, that
Yeah.
can be a logo, but be part of the logo. But what would Kobe's signature thing be? That's not like Jordan. So
Right.
therefore, it has to be Jordan. I just don't know what it could be.
Right. 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 Great point. Great point. I agree. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I think hands down recognizable, like you said. Um, and again, for me, what he has done for the game, both on and off the floor, the
Mm-hmm.
NBA itself. I mean, the and again, I go back to the point I was saying, the business part of what Jordan changed for the
Mm-hmm.
NBA athletes, not just NBA athletes, but pro athletes, period. Um,
Correct.
what he ended up, I always say this, and this kind of goes into the GOAT conversation. So I'll touch briefly on it. I won't go into details until we get on that show.
Mm-hmm.
Kareem was revolutionary as far as basketball, period. If you think about what happened at UCLA, you think about what he won in high school. Kareem
Mm-hmm.
won. But for NBA athletes, business wise, NBA, it has to be Michael Jordan.
Has to be.
in terms of the shoes. Again, the shoes, the logo, his logo, but just business wise, I mean, guys weren't doing McDonald's commercials.
No.
Basketball players weren't doing McDonald's commercials. You know, back in the day with the shoes, it was kind of frowned upon to wear black shoes in the NBA. I think they even fined them for that. Now everybody.
Great point.
Right. I remember at the time in the 90s after Jordan. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember there was a couple of NBA teams that when the playoffs came, they put on black shoes. And the baggy shorts.
Right. You know, right.
People point to the Fab Five, but that started with Michael Jordan, those big shorts. You know, he didn't like those small shorts. So when you think about that, the shorts, I think globally with the Dream Team, he was a global star. And the Dream Team, with him being the head of that, really took the NBA to a different level global wise, marketing, business. I just think he revolutionized the NBA in terms of business and making it a more global, recognizable game, in particular, American athletes. You know, the Gatorade commercials, the Be Like Mike phrase, everything. I mean, even today, Michael Jordan is not playing, and he's known worldwide. Think about the Jordan logo. Now you've got football players playing in Jordans.
Great point.
You know, you got golf players playing in Jordan golf shoes. You got boxers, Roy Jones Jr., Andre Ward signed to the Jordan logo in boxing.
And Jordan brand. It's tough.
Yeah. You know, he's into auto racing with his, you know, and he's got the first that I've ever seen, and I'm saying outside of Converse, Reebok, but he's the first athlete to have his own line coming outside of Nike, meaning that Jordan was always a part of Nike. He's got Jordan athletes signed to his shoes. I mean, think about that. Russell Westbrook has a Jordan shoe, signature shoe. Zion has a Jordan signature shoe. Roy Jones, you know, Carmelo Anthony. So we've never seen that off of one guy just playing a sport, you know?
Right.
And so many people, and he gets, you know, he's a division of Nike on his own, you know? So, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer in terms of that. I think Kobe is definitely a valuable candidate. But to me, and I'll even say this in the GOAT conversation, Kobe is the second, meaning that Michael Jordan was the first of what Kobe does, in my opinion.
I love it. And I can't wait because I went and dug up some stats and facts and dug deep just to play devil's advocate with people when we have this combo. And I'm 100% going to have you on, or at least try to have you on one of the episodes, because I want to do it for basketball. I want to do it for football. I want to do it for, you know, you name it. I want to talk about music. You know, I want to just have this conversation all around, because there's a lot that goes into being the greatest of all time. And people keep saying, well, these guys are one of the GOATs. And I'm going, okay, one of the greatest of all times means how many can that be? Can that be 10 or can that be 2?
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. And that's an easy way out. And having the greatest of all times conversation is a hard conversation.
It is definitely a hard conversation.
You brought up a great point.
Right. And I think it's a subjective, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's subjective. I mean,
absolutely.
It all depends on what you value.
I mean, you look at Wilt. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I know what you're gonna say. Because Let's get one last question in. Let me ask you. Looking at the Boston Celtics, what's going on with them? And I had this conversation the other day, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. Let's talk about it a little bit with the audience. I'm looking at Jason Tatum, and I'm looking at Jaylen Brown, and I'm saying to myself, could this be, if the Celtics are able to keep this group together, these two in particular, could this be one of the best duels of all time? And I asked myself on the back of that, what is the top 5 duels in NBA history?
Ooh, okay. So that's tough because immediately 2 stand out immediately. 3, God dang, 3 stand out immediately.
Well, give me 5. Give me 5.
Okay. So, obviously Jordan and Pippen, right? That's a rock solid duo. I'm gonna go Malone and Stockton, Magic and Lou Alcindor, Kareem, right?
right. I didn't think about Stockton. Then go ahead, keep going. That's good.
Right. That's tough. Kobe and Shaq.
Okay.
That's tough.
That's 4.
I know I'm missing somebody that's gonna stand out. And I mean, you can argue and say Bird and fill in the blank, but is it Bird and Parrish? Is it Bird and McHale? Is it? So I don't know. That was more of a 3-headed monster.
Right.
And so let me think more modern times. Because again, like I love to see what Steph and Clay have done, but those two together needed Draymond to help get them over the hump, in my opinion. Right.
We're talking about duels. We're not talking about, and we'll talk about 3 on another time, a big 3. Let's talk about 2. Because again, the theme is behind Jalen. Not Jalen, but the theme is behind Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
They tough,
but they could be right. But I mean, the 4 you given, Jordan and Pippen. I didn't even think about Malone and Stockton. Kobe
solid together.
Kareem and Magic.
I'm missing somebody.
How about Malone and Stockton?
And where do you put KD? Has he solidified himself yet with one particular player?
No.
Because he was nice with Russ, but that wasn't it. It never materialized to what I thought it would be.
Well, I've been on this show. I've gone on the record several times. I'm probably a KD. I don't say a hater, but I criticize a lot.
He deserves it. He deserves it.
Oh man.
Who is that number 5?
Who's number 5? Who is?
I'm telling you, there's going to be somebody that we simply forgetting about is going to jump out. But I'm thinking some old school Knicks. There's nobody standing out these old school Knicks. Because again, I can't tell you before 1980. You know, I was a baby. I don't know.
Okay, so let's think what we got. Let's say this. We got. We could throw in LeBron and Wade, but that
was solid.
Trio. That might be a trio with Bosh.
No Spurs.
Could you go Timmy and David?
Because well, they won one with those two, but then they ended up winning with Ginobili and eventually Parker to make more. And David was
that
out.
That might be a 3 with Duncan, Ginobili, and Parker. And God forbid, I want to say Penny and Shaq, but they didn't stay long enough, and they didn't do enough numbers for them to be considered a top duel.
I agree.
I could say the same about Elijah One and Drexler, but they only won 1 championship together.
Correct.
I don't know who's the 5th one, man. I mean,
it's got to be somebody that I'm thinking, and I don't know off the top of my head right now who that last group is, but I know for a fact I'm telling you, as soon as this podcast goes off, It's gonna slap me across the face and be mad at myself for not coming up with this off the top of my head.
All right. So out of that group we name,
Mm-hmm.
rather, who's the best? And why?
So the easy way out, which I hate doing, the easy way out is saying Jordan and Pippen because they never lost together. Right. Well, when they say Jordan played a full year, when they were together, because Jordan never won without Pippen.
Without Scotty.
Right. But Magic and Kareem, they lost. Right. But they helped transform basketball.
And that's my toss up between those two.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because, of course, we could say Jordan and Pippen, but man, Magic and Kareem, man. How many did they win? 5 together?
5. You know what I'm saying? I know they won 5. Maybe I know they won 5. You know, and I want to say that the stats were with Malone and Stockton. They put up crazy numbers. Yes. But they never got the championship to back it up, so they have to be kicked out the group.
That's why I said I never thought about that till you said that. Mm-hmm. I was like, wow, I didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm. I did not think about them because they didn't win a championship.
No championship. You know, but Stockton was the all-time assist leader and steals leader at one point.
Yeah.
And Malone is number 2 all-time scorer.
Right.
You know, right. And again, you look at Utah's team and you go, well, they got Stockton, they got Hornacek, they got Jeff Malone, Karl Malone, and some other role-type players, but they constantly win games.
Right.
You go, they did what they were supposed to do. They overachieved, if you ask me.
Right.
But I would love to talk about my Pistons, but we don't have a real duo with, you know, the Isaiah Thomas.
Arguably Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars. Arguably.
And you know, you go, but are they, because they won 2 together.
Right.
But they just feel like they don't belong in this conversation.
Right, right. Know? If they would have won 3, I think 3 puts you above everybody.
If they'd be Jordan that last time.
Right, right.
They got
him. Right. They
absolutely.
Right, right.
Oh yeah. So right there, I'm gonna be safe and say I'm gonna give you 4 because I can't think of 5 off the top, but probably the safe one is Jordan and Pippen. But I'm gonna tell you, I really enjoyed watching Shaq and Kobe play because they could have been.
Is that the 5th one?
Did we say Shaq and Kobe?
Said Jordan, Pippen. Mm-hmm. You said Kareem, Magic.
Mm-hmm.
You said Stockton, Malone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that was the 4th one.
Those 4, yeah.
Yeah.
And if they don't argue and they don't have their personal stuff and Shaq comes in shape, and I know you can say if with a lot of things, they are hard to beat for years to come.
And they're right there with Jordan, Pippen, and Kareem. And
oh, absolutely.
I think so.
I think they win 7.
They could.
You know, but again, no, it's hard to do that year in, year out.
Right.
You know, so, but yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and say those, you know, Jordan and Pippen to be safe.
I you know, I have to agree because they won 6, man.
Yeah.
No.
And no game 7.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy. Yeah. You know, so now saying that, it is what it is, and we're gonna have this argument again for sure at a later date.
Well, definitely, man. Well, listen, man. Hey, we appreciate this, man. We really appreciate you, man. I think this was a fire episode.
Appreciate it.
You know, I send this to you, man. You make sure you put this out to your audience, man. This is a great podcast. We definitely want you on again as a co-host, man. Whenever you feel like you want to come on, let us know. We'll definitely have you on. Get a chance to meet Cole, but we'll meet Cole soon. But we'll definitely, if you need us on, man, if you need us to fill in, let us know. We'll jump on with you, brother. We all about promoting it. I appreciate your knowledge, man. You got a lot of knowledge. This was a great podcast. Exactly what I thought it was gonna be. Shouts out, man. You look good. You sound good. You know, a lot of good positive energy on top of knowledge. So we appreciate it. Before we get out here, give out your social media stuff, man, so people can, follow you and, check you out.
Appreciate it. Well, again, thank you for having me. I am on the Job 87 podcast. It's really Job 87. It's a Bible verse that basically means my beginnings were small, but my end will be great. And I don't mean that in the arrogant sense at all. It's all about growth. It's all about trying to be bigger and better than I was the day before. And I always want to give back to the community. I always want to do more to help others. And I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to come out and speak and just, rekindle this friendship that goes way back. I'm gonna go ahead and say it, Bake, 20 years plus.
Hey, we getting up there, ain't we?
Right.
Yeah. Hey, 20 years plus.
And I have, when you're on my podcast, we got to talk about, I got a chance to see you grow.
Right.
I got a chance to see you grow. And we'll get into that for sure. So I appreciate all that, that you've done. You've been a stand-up guy. And again, it's the Job 87 podcast on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere you stream it. Feel free to like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe this podcast as well.
Right. Well, good, man. We appreciate it. To all the fans, hey, we want to thank Mr. Jason Campbell for this dynamic show today. Dynamic, man. We will catch up next week. To my audience with Debate with Bake, we'll catch you up next week and do it again. We want to thank you all for tuning in tonight with the Debate podcast. You can stream this on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Please follow Mo Serious Entertainment on Instagram and Facebook. Subscribe to Mo Serious Entertainment on YouTube. We will catch you next week. Another 5 episode. We will catch you next week on Debate with Bake podcast. We are out. Shout out again to Jason Campbell for the solid content, for being the person that you are. Appreciate you coming on. We definitely got to have you back. You dropped a lot of gems with us tonight. And we are out. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.